Hello there, and welcome to Adonai in Art, where we look at temporary art and put it under the lens of the eternal artist. I'm your host, Noel Davison, and as always, I'm thankful that you are here with me today. And I have another friend I am thankful to have here today, and, I don't know how to set you up, I don't know how to introduce you, but I love this guy full-heartedly, and when I think of someone that I just get to enjoy TV shows with, you come to mind definitely, especially because you put me through really good shows and Umbrella Academy, so, you know, like ups and downs. But everyone, this is my friend Josh. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Noel. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so I would like you to tell us, what show are we talking about today?
We are talking about Amphibia, or as we like to call it, Frog Show.
I love Frog Show.
This is just a TV show that we decided to watch because it's lighthearted and fun, but has some more hidden meanings under it, is what we discovered.
It was especially fun whenever we watched the finale, and I just remember we had a really good conversation about friendship, and especially, like, the way everything connected at the end, because the ending of this, like, I didn't expect it to be so heartfelt, but it came on strong, and I don't remember if I cried, but I got very close to it.
I think you teared up a little.
Okay.
You may have cried. I don't know. I teared up in certain parts too, because I know we both had conversations about how deep friendships are with us and just different situations in life with friendships in past and present.
And I think that was cool too, because I think by the time we had finished the finale, this was around the time where I think I really started to see you and be like, oh, wow, I love Josh. Like, I'm very thankful to know Josh, because this was, I think, like, we had known each other, re-known each other for about a year. So yes. By that point, just for context, the audience, we went to the same church when we were little kids, and then I left, and then I came back 11 years later, and essentially I was a new person because I wasn't the screaming brat that I was in church.
And when we were little kids, we really didn't hang out much. We knew of each other, but we really didn't, like, hang out or, like, do anything friends would. But it was nice that as adults coming back into the situation that we have a lot in common and a lot of same interests.
Yeah, I remember when we started doing movie nights, or at least you guys had been doing that. And then when I started to join them, it was watching like the Eurovision movie and the various Scooby-Doo movies where it was like, man, this is just a lot of fun. And then I don't know if it was Amphibia we started with, or
we started with Owl House because we both shared our interest about Gravity Falls, and then we grew on to TV shows similar in aspects and came around the same time with animation similarities. So we just went on to Owl House, and then Amphibia was our last one. I don't remember if we did it before or after you left for Israel. That's memory. That summer all bleeded together, but it happened sometime.
It was in Israel, but I think we finished it before I went off to that trip. Yeah, I think so, because we were in the middle of Arcane at that point.
Yeah, we finished the first season of Arcane and then went on, and then it was done, and then you left, and then season 2 just came out this year.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, I can't wait to talk about Arcane. I'm so excited. But getting back to Amphibia right now.
Yes. Frog Show.
Frog Show. I love Frog Show. I also love Grimmothy. I'm just going to throw that out there. Grimmothy, I think, is my favorite character in the show. Okay. And then Hop Pop's got to be close second because I love Hop Pop. He's just so... I don't know. I don't like using the word wholesome often, but wholesome just is a perfect word for him. Like, he's doing his best to care for his grandkids, and eventually he throws Anne into the ring with that. And I like how a lot of the different storylines involve, like, the revealing of traumas and things he didn't tell Anne or tell, especially about, like, the history of their family, and that ends up becoming something they actually have to reconcile through, because even there, Hop Pop he's doing it because he wants to protect Anne and protect everyone from the... He knows about the prophecy of the... Oh, yeah, he had the jewelry box.
It was the notebook from his family that said Calamity Box. And it was dangerous and to stay away from it.
Right, yeah. So even when he was withholding that from Anne, like, that was really cool because, again, he's doing it because he wants to protect her, because he loves her. It's just misguided because that's how people end up doing when they hide truth from people. Yeah.
My favorite character, other than the 3 main ones, is probably Sprig. Honestly, I think I relate to him more on like a fun level of like, I love just to have a good time, have a fun time. But then there's also the serious aspects of having those hard times with like, especially with a new friend at the beginning when they first become friends, of like, I'm trying to be a good friend but I don't know how to act and stuff like this, and just seeing that relationship grow. I think other than the main three, Sprig would be one of my favorite characters.
You also do happen to make a meow sound every time you jump, so
Yep, that natural comes, you're right. Every time I jump, that sound happens.
I am curious, how did you come upon Amphibia?
So it started with, I watched Owl House first, kind of like how we watched it, but it was back in college, and we were just randomly flipping through the TV in the lobby, and Owl House was on, and we finished that, or me and a couple buddies finished that show, and it was really enjoyable. So then I went down a deep dive of what else is there, because I enjoyed Gravity Falls, I enjoyed Owl House, and then I came across Amphibia, and there's a lot of crossovers, like little Easter eggs in Owl House that alludes to Amphibia. And I didn't realize that until after I watched Amphibia. And then just giving it a chance, I'm like, this is actually pretty fun. And I'm just the kind of guy who loves to watch any TV show. So, like, it started with me, like, playing it in the background and just doing stuff around the house. And then as it got more into it, it became more of a, oh, this actually has some underlining plot and some underlining messages and some, like, actual good lessons. And then I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially because, like, even from the theme song, like, they give us implication of something else going on with the opening of the box, and you see those three girls, and you're like, well, who are the other two? Until you learn, okay, one of them actually is kind of terrible, and the other one is, I don't know, when you first meet Marcy, she is very, like, fun, naive, so they don't really get into, like, the darker side of her until the end of season 2.
Yeah, you see her as more of like a fun little clumsy goofball who's very knowledgeable and loves learning about things. But yeah, and then we see the allude of Sasha right at the end of episode 1, so it gets you stuck there in plot because you think there's just one, other than the theme song shows you all three, and then you meet the second one for a split second real close to the beginning of the show. And you don't even see her again until like maybe 10 episodes later, something like that. Yeah. And then you realize what kind of a person she is.
Right. And man, definitely I know, like, we've mentioned talking about Sasha because she has one of the most interesting arcs in, like, that overarching goal of friendship that the show has. And just on, like, a storytelling perspective, that's something I wanted to bring up. Like, there's the three friends, and then, like, for anyone listening, this is pretty much a spoiler for the entire series, so go watch it.
If you feel like you're not spoiled enough at this point, watch it and then come back. If you feel like you've already heard too much, just stay along for the ride.
At this point, yeah. But even if we spoil everything, go watch it. It's great. But I like there's the three friends of Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, but then there's the lore where it's the three gems and the, like, elements of, I think it's courage, wisdom, and strength, right? Like, basically the Triforce.
It's like knowledge, heart, and strength.
Okay, knowledge, heart, and strength.
But there are aspects in each temple or trial that we see that could allude to, like, other things.
Okay.
But the things that they call them mainly is, like, knowledge, because it's the brain temple, heart, and then strength is the main words that we hear, but they do talk about other aspects within the temple as well.
Yeah, and stuff like that I thought was really cool because, like, the way, like, there's three of everything, even, like, the newts, toads, and frogs. I think phonetic is the word I think of, or maybe just, like, oh, it's synergy. I like the synergy between, like, the three friends, especially, like, deep spoilers into the finale, the three friends that Andreas was a part of, the three different species and the different cities, and just, like, the way there's all that disunity and then unity that comes together in the show. Just, like, Matt Braley did such a good job making this whole world simple but engaging enough that, like, everything makes sense, but nothing feels wasted. It doesn't feel like a kid's show because of that.
Yeah. And especially, like what you said, seeing later in the show the flashback of how all three groups were in unity. And then we see the flash forward of the events that happened that caused them all to separate and creates the hierarchy of who is best and then who is lower. And then seeing each of the main girls within each of those three places. And especially the growth of each of them in those places, because if they landed in the other, they probably wouldn't have had the same stories at all. Like, they, especially for each character they are and what they needed to learn, I feel like they all landed in the right place.
That's a good way to put it, especially because all of them seem to match their personalities really well. Like, when the series starts, you see how Grime and Sasha, like, butt heads, but really they're battle-hardened, strong-willed personalities kind of make them perfect for each other. And, like, maybe that was the first person Sasha ever met that was like her, since Grime was that fierce warrior type. Actually, there's that episode with the other two toads that Sasha meets that I think we gotta talk about at some point when we get into friendship, but just in general, I like how both of them connect in that. And then with Anne, I like it comes from a place of she herself has been wanting someone to care about her, to just accept her for who she is. And then she hops into Wortwood, which motto is slow to accept, slower to respect.
Motto to live by.
I really like how nuanced that gets because, like, Anne herself is a great character. I don't think of her in, like, the whole main character syndrome or anything where she's a Mary Sue. I don't think that ever happens because she is very fun. She cares about people. She just wants connection. And so we end up seeing that throughout the show where, like, with Sprig, Hop Pop, Polly, and then even just, like, most of season 1 is based around her just helping people in Wortwood and trying to, like, show people that she cares about them before it gets into the larger-than-life factions and all of that.
And then especially in those beginning episodes when we see Anne without the other friends, the kind of personality Anne has on her own, where she has been in this friendship with the others so long that she doesn't know what it's like to have friends other than them. Because in a flashback, we see when they first started becoming friends, they were young. And because of the personalities of, like, Sasha and Marcy, who just was go with the flow there anyway, Sasha kind of overtook the friendship and kind of became the alpha in the friendship. And then we see when she first lands in Wortwood, when she's trying to make a friend, she becomes that because that's the only friendship she knew at that point. And then she has to grow from that and learn that she doesn't actually want to take all control. She didn't like that, so she doesn't want to be that. And then we see that later when we go back to the meeting of the group together again, the friends.
Especially because, again, like, it all comes from the core of just wanting to be loved, right? Those mistakes happened not from, like, a malicious place, but just because, like, the idea of all three of the kids are removed from their element and just dropped into this completely different world where, I don't know, it's like, as someone who's gone to other countries and lived there for a couple months, I get the feeling of, like, stuff looks familiar and you can kind of logistically go, okay, I know what that is, but it's so vastly different. They have glue, but it's little bugs. They have all these different tools. They have mushrooms that explode things. They have Loggle is his name?
The wood carver, yeah.
The wood carver, yes. Just like these people that, like, you probably know the weird inventor in real life, but he's also an axolotl, so that changes things to where it makes sense she would want to, like, do things trying to form her friend group into what she knew and being her Sasha, because she's just trying to find some familiarity in this completely foreign world to her. Mm-hmm. And so hopping into the friendship angle of that, I mean, I think we've already made it apparent. Friendship is a huge part of the entire series, from the girl's backstory to eventually the main villain's backstory.
To the new friendships they meet along the way with their different groups, not just the reuniting of friendships, but the new friends they made along the way as well.
And I'd even say the core, even though I don't think it's a great villain, the idea of it being a collection of people that don't want to die and devote themselves solely to intelligence is a way that kind of parallels the contrast of them, because Andreas himself closed himself off from people because he was like, I gotta fulfill the core mission. I gotta be a king of Newtopia and do this evil world domination plot. Because especially of how Marcy manipulated the situation to try and keep all of them in Amphibia, I think that theme of not moving on hits really hard, because the core's literal existence is based on the motivation of not wanting to move on. Andreas himself is like 200-something years old because he keeps roboting himself.
1,000 years old.
Oh, he's 1,000. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
900 years. It's been 900 years since they were all united. Toads, newts, and frogs.
Yeah, so even better. Like, he's been like 1,000 years old because he doesn't want to move on from his rulership. But then with the kids, what they all learn together, especially Marcy, is that things need to move on. That it's healthy for it to move on, even though, as they rightfully point out, it does stink. It really does.
And I mean, that brings us to how they got there in the first place. Marcy, with the fear of not just leaving her friends, I mean, that's the heart of it, her fear of being separated from her friends, but the fear of her family moving away entirely. Her sense of unity with her friends and where she is being taken away. And we see part of that even when they go to Amphibia to kind of like prep her almost, even though she wasn't ready to let go. That was still a new experience, but they all grew in that way. So I think that also alludes or foreshadows that what could happen or what is possible back in the real world. Because even though they weren't all together in Amphibia, they all grew and united, which, again, this is a huge spoiler. They learned that lesson by the end, and that's how I feel like Marcy is more able to move on.
Right. Oh, man. Especially I love that connection where it's like, even though she has to move on from what she's familiar with, especially leaving her friends, she didn't have to leave her friends to learn that lesson. Like, she still does life with them together. That's our friend pointed out on Sunday that a great connection at the very end is that Marcy asks if Sasha and Anne hang out together after we flash forward into like high school, end of high school.
It's 10 years, so like 23 because they were 13.
Okay,
so after
right.
high school. Even.
Thank you for being the historian.
Historian, I've seen the show like 3 times because I've watched it with multiple different people.
No, that's true. My excuse is I watch too much stuff that like my brain can't remember everything. Yeah. But point is, I really like when Marcy asks if Sasha and Anne hang out or they hung out together during high school, and they said, yeah, we didn't really fit in the same circles, but there was still that establishment of they are always there for each other. They didn't need each other intimately in each other's lives for them to truly be deep friends, because as he pointed out, true friendship doesn't require codependency.
And we also see this even in the being ready to leave Amphibia, in her relationship with the people, Anne's and the others' relationship with those who they're leaving behind to go back to the real world.
Right.
Where it's like, even though they're not here, Hot Pop says, if you ever need a place to stay, you're welcome, even though there's not a way to get back to our knowledge.
Right.
Unless something happens that they will eventually explain in the future. Who knows? If the show comes back.
Who knows?
But we learned that lesson at the very end with the heart of them leaving Amphibia with the connections of those who are still there and being like, yeah, we're not going to be around. We're not going to be here. But, hey, we're still friends. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, like you said, that's something that you've had when you've lived in other countries. Like, we communicated even thousands of miles away. We stayed in connection. We stayed friends. We didn't fall apart. We didn't talk or hang out as much as we'd like to, but we're still there for each other.
Yeah, and I probably said it 5 times, but I'm going to say it again. I am so deeply thankful for when, like, you didn't send me, like, deep personal letters of, like, oh, Noel, I miss you so much. That sounds really...
My dearest Noel, it has been so long since we have seen each other. How is the other side of this vast ocean? I cannot wait to hang out with you again. Maybe watch a show on the magic picture box of color. Your dearest friend and brother, Joshua.
Dearest Joshua, we still have TV on this side, so maybe we could find a show we both have wanted to watch, and potentially just compare notes after we have watched an episode or two. But I leave that up to your opinion, which I value so deeply highly as my brother in Christ and dearest friend. Dearestly, Noel.
Noel, it is beautiful to hear from you again. I am so glad you are doing well. Hopefully these letters find you well. Thank you. Yeah, we didn't have conversations like that, but
I loved that, like, you would send me videos of you and our friend Paul, like, watching Owl House and the reactions there. Or, like, yeah, there was the deep moments, like when you sent me those happy birthday videos with all the kids we work with at church, like, meant so much to me. I definitely cried. But then, like, you would just send me goofy stuff, or like you singing a Baby Lasagna song. That was, I still have that video cherished on my phone. And
oh no. This is blackmail. I did not agree to this.
Hey, you bought the suit. You bought the suit and the Croatian flag.
I already own the suit, to be clear. I did not buy it.
But even then, just like Like, we just had that moment. Friendship is something that's so beautiful and, like, we need as people. And the show really highlights that because, like, they have the, I guess you could say, sappy emotional moments where they connect or they'll hug at the end. But then, like, they'll nag at each other. They will joke. They will do goofy stuff or, like, blow up their house because of a giant chocolate magma cake, you know? Like, it's what friends do. And stuff like that really hits home for me. And I know, like, I think that's one of the reasons I definitely have enjoyed Amphibia with you the most is, like, because, yeah, the writing's really good. There's so many lines that we've said to each other now. But at the end of the day, it's almost like you're going to your family's house. It's warm. It's not perfect. I actually have told you, like, I think the pacing sometimes is way too fast. Some ideas I think could have been fleshed out. But at the end of the day, like, I learned to forgive any of that because I just love watching Amphibia. It's comforting. It's fun.
I also love in the show, like, we've talked about some of the big, like, lessons at the end and stuff like that, but the individual episodes and the growth that we see within those, because, like, we have an episode where Anne wants to get out of work, so she lies, and then she learns about honesty and, like, being open and honest with the new adopted friend slash family she has, and then what it means to respect other people in these mini lessons, even though it's an overarching show about friendship. But we learn, like, the key elements, at least in this show, that they value in friendship. Like the honesty, the being open with each other, like if a situation isn't what you want, and like being clear, like in Sasha, like, I don't want to be in charge, I'm scared of this, and then like just instead of just like blindly obeying her because you don't want to take charge, but also just being willing to open and have that conversation with the other person, and then like all the other aspects of like the closeness, and then like being willing to listen to each other and being there for each other in different situations. Like even the whole like being there with Sprig when he's having the whole very sad moment of Anne's having this whole day about her mom, and then Sprig opens up about, like, since he didn't know his mom, can you miss someone you've never met? And then that ends in a hug, and it's that seriousness too, where we learn all these individual small lessons, and I'm definitely missing some. We can definitely talk about more if we need to bring it up.
There are like 50 freaking episodes.
There's a lot of episodes. There's a lot of individual things. I really, really encourage you to see them all out. They're all good. They're funny. But yeah, all the underlining lessons throughout of like different ways to, and that's ultimately how we see their growth over time, because it's these mini lessons that change the person.
And with friendship, like, there is something so, I think I already said powerful, but deeply personal with it. And you're right. Like, this show is a great template for, like, good lessons in friendship. And, like, I could just say, well, that's the application, and we'll call it good. Like, now I can justify watching this. But no, I remember telling you that I thought a lot about the life of David from the Bible, because that's something I've heard a lot of people connect to with friendship, especially because when we read about Jonathan and David, like right after David's killed Goliath, we learn that Jonathan, actually, do I have the scripture pulled up? I do. I'm going to read the scripture. In 1 Samuel 18, verses 1 through 5, as soon as he, David, had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let David return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David. He gave him his armor, even his sword and his bow and his belt. And David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over the men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. So right after the David and Goliath story, like, Jonathan just goes above and beyond. Not only, I imagine, giving his gratitude for, like, this giant that has been oppressing them for 40 days, and David just went and killed him, had so much faith in the Lord, and Jonathan just gives blessing upon blessing and makes himself his best friend. And the thing that has irked me whenever I read about this is so many people will say, well, that's pretty gay if you ask me. Like, knit his own soul? Like, that sounds pretty gay. But it's like,
they were basically brothers.
Yeah.
Heart and soul sharing the same bond, brothers. Like, they had a very strong friendship and connection as brothers and as friends.
Yes, because the deepest form of intimacy we know as humans is romance, sure, but that's not the only deep form of intimacy. We as people, as God's children, made in the Imago Dei, were designed to go deeper than just liking the same TV shows. Like, I know our friendship is not built on just television shows. It would be really shallow. I had a friend in high school where all we did was just watch shows or play video games. And even though it hurts to say, like, our friendship is almost dead now because there was nothing else to support it. And so that's why I've always advocated for the idea of friendship is built on both the silly and the serious. And, like, the scripture is telling this in the context of history. So we don't know. Maybe Jonathan and David had a day where they just shot arrows with each other or just talked about stuff over a meal. Like, I mean, maybe they didn't. Maybe it was all official. But if you're writing in scripture that the soul of Jonathan was knit to David's soul, then there's no way they only just, like, had deep, serious conversations about knightlyhood. They had to have been there for each other.
This is completely unscripted. But when you brought up David, so I recently saw David at Sight and Sound.
Oh, nice.
Love the show. Amazing show. But I don't know why I didn't connect it before. Again, completely unscripted. If it gets cut, it gets cut. But when thinking on that and then thinking back to the show and then thinking about other aspects in David's life and then Saul, it weirdly made me connect and think about, like, if we want to go very like biblical connection, the core in an aspect in the show could almost represent a Saul where they don't want to die, they don't want to give up their power, they don't want to do that. But then Andreas, the king, again, could be heresy, don't kill me, could represent a David in an aspect where, yes, he became king, yes, he did wrong, but then he ultimately still asked God for forgiveness and still opened up, and in that aspect of God is still with him. Even though David did wrong, David did sin, he still came back to God.
Yes.
In the aspect of, it may have taken Andreas a while, but he did ultimately do what was right. Completely unscripted.
That's genius. I didn't even think about that.
I didn't think of it until you started reading, and I'm like, oh, wait, let's think here for a moment. And then it just connected with, like, I kind of see it, because Saul didn't want to give up his power. He actually kind of he did attack David in the same aspect as the core did kind of force and attack Andreas mentally into this wanting what they want and not wanting to give up their power or die.
Yeah. Especially because that obsession with sticking in the present and keeping what you had, that literally got Marcy stabbed. Like, she got stabbed through the chest because I don't remember the scene exactly, because whenever you see a child get stabbed through the chest, it's hard to remember anything else about that scene.
When the episode starts with a little frog telling you this show could show very intense final scenes that could be unsettling to young viewers, viewer discretion advised. In a kid show, this is going to be an episode.
Yes. And I had thought at that moment it was just Sprig being thrown out the window, which still almost made me cry. I was not expecting that.
Little frog being thrown out the window with memory flashbacks and slow song dying. You assume that's the sad moment. Psych! A girl gets stabbed through the chest.
What I remember from that scene is that I think the reason that happened is because Marcy could have ran through the portal with them, but she was still trying to reason through everything. She was still like, no, guys, we can make this work. Maybe she doesn't exactly say that, but she hesitates. She could have just ran through that portal and gotten away, but she hesitated because I think a part of her soul was still connected to the idea of, we can make this work. We can be adventurers forever. But whenever you were saying about Saul, it reminded me of Matthew 16:26. I love this verse. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? The core ends up revealing that what they give for their soul is a giant multi-eyed hell demon that tries to send a moon into a planet. And, like, it's goofy to say that because it's a cartoon, but, like, in story, it's like the core was so dependent on keeping its way that it was going to wipe out all of existence in their world in order to keep itself. And I agree, like, when you brought up Andreas, I love that scene where he lets Anne beat him down and he just starts crying when he remembers, like, I think, like, when he just has his whole life flash before his eyes and realizes, what have I done this whole time? It's like, it's so much more powerful than if he stayed evil and Anne punched him, because, like, at the end of the day, the best stories, even the action ones, are built around these people being like humans, being full of a heart. They have a heart. They have souls. And Andreas, I think, is a great villain because of that. That jolliness, I don't think all of it was an act. Like, yes, he ultimately was like, okay, I'm going to try and be as evil as possible and disguise them, and I'm gonna be over jolly like freaking Amphibia Santa Claus. I kind of want an excuse to do my Keith David voice. Shout out to Keith David, by the way. He's getting like a Stone Hall of Fame.
I saw that. Yeah, that's cool.
But point is, Andreas does have his act, but at the end of the day, like, I think he legitimately had moments where he enjoyed his friendship with Marcy. I think he enjoyed being Newtopia's king. And, like, we see that whenever we go to the flashbacks, that he was not always such a stone-cold monster. It just took years of being so obsessed with holding to what basically his father and his fathers before him enforced upon him.
And then also, like, the flashbacks of he just remembered the negatives. Like, especially when we see, like, all he's done and sacrificed to get this far. Because he's more machine by the end than living. Like,
he's more machine now than man.
He does sacrifice a lot, and he makes that statement that to live this long, it wasn't without cost. But the final moment that we get, the note from his past, his friend, where it's like, I never forgot about you. I think of you dearly. I hope you didn't close off. I hope you're still the kind of person you are. It made him realize that he's not. And he was just focusing all in this, like, anger towards this past situation and the voice in his head of the core and his ancestors of, hey, no, this is who you are. And he forgot the voice of friendship from his dear friend who was like, hey, you're not that kind of person. You can be a different king. You can be this. But he just focused on all the negative until he finally was in that moment at the very end and read the note from her and was like, don't close off. And he's like, no, she was right. I can stop this. And he literally willingly sacrifices himself to kind of try and end it. And you see the humanity still there. Yes. Even though he went through all this destruction on Earth and destruction in Amphibia, you see his humanity still at the end.
Right. And even connecting that back to Saul, another thing I thought of is whenever Saul dies, he's fighting the Philistines, which also Jonathan gets killed in that battle, which always broke my heart because he, for all we know, he was still Jonathan all the way through. He still loved David. He fought to save him. Even like in scripture, Saul says, don't you realize that if David lives, you don't get to be king? And Jonathan goes, I don't care. God anointed him, so I'm going to follow that. But Saul, at the very end of his life, whenever he knew that the battle was lost, he told his armor bearer to just straight up kill him because he'd rather that than the Philistines win. And then the armor bearer says, no, I won't do it. And so Saul stabs himself, basically. And that obsession with sticking to the very end, like being so prideful and closed off that, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to die a king. And the irony of that is he did that to keep his reputation as the great king. But now we read that in scripture and realize how pointless that was at the end of the day. What Andreas realizes is he forfeited his soul for this entire thing. And what did it really accomplish? Like, a bunch of factories that destroyed homes, that hurt people. Saul, at the end of the day, lost his godly son because he was so obsessed with being the king of Israel instead of going, okay, I sinned, I did horrible, I need to let David take control now. He couldn't let that go.
And the reconnection of Andreas in the show, he does go back and, like you said, the whole plan is destroyed. He brings these factories, he destroys everything, but then he is the one who is by himself, but still planting seeds, trying to wrong his right, and trying to make right with what he did. He knows at that point that everything he tried to do was wrong, and he was just trying to make things right.
And something I think that's really cool is that we have another character in the show that went through that arc, and that's Sasha. Bringing back those two toads, one of my favorite parts they do in one of the episodes is when we have that episode fully focused on Sasha, Grime, and the Toad Kingdom. One thing that happens is those two, like, I think they're just Toad comic relief, but they're treated as people. Sasha ends up pushing them so far and being stuck in her ways that she loses those friendships. And something I think that was powerful is that we never see them reconcile. It's entirely possible they never reconciled.
The only knowledge we get is when she's about to leave Amphibia for good and tells Grime that, hey, you find them and you tell them that, that she's sorry and all that. That she wants the connection, but there's legitimately no time, and she wants that forgiveness. And that shows us a lot in her growth as well, where at the beginning she didn't care what other people thought of her. Like you said, the reason her and Grime connected so well is because they were power seeking, and that's true. But Sasha had more of a manipulation, and that like magnetism of, hey, yeah, compliment you to make you do what I want, which also influenced Grime, so they kind of negatively improved each other. I say that because yes, they became better leaders, but also it was used for a bad thing, and that's what we see with the other two toads in that situation. She promises them, hey, if things get too scary, here's your way out. You guys are great. We can't do this without you. The encouragement of, I don't actually have any intent to, we're this close, we can't call off now. I think down deep in Sasha, there might have been a chance where she's like legitimately like, hey, if we need to leave, we need to leave. But when victory is that close in her grasp, I think she becomes blinded to, no, it doesn't matter anymore. This is more important.
The ends justify the means.
I think that's exactly what goes on in Sasha's head, where if victory is this close, it doesn't matter what you think. And then we see that grow through her even more.
Yeah. The episode we got to watch tonight where we see that growth where she knows she's a better fit for a leader, but she is willing to give it to Anne because she doesn't trust that she's not going to hurt it again, especially because they have all of season 2 where they start to connect, they start to reconcile, and then her and Grind try and take over Newtopia at the end. Like, while all of this Andreas crud is going down, they try and usurp the throne, and Anne in that moment, like, there's not really enough time to sit with it, which makes sense because they're in war, but Anne is like, really? We did all of this, and you're still being Sasha? And, like, that even strikes a chord with Sasha when she's like, what am I doing?
I think that was the first key that hit Sasha, where it's like, yeah, I do need to legitimately change. We see the other aspect after the Newt invasion and her in Wartwood, where it's like, oh, these people actually care. But in that moment when Sasha takes over and puts the king in prison and it's like, hey, this is what's right, this is good, but Anne doesn't know that Sasha and Grime found the giant portrait of what Andreas actually wants, and that's destruction and to destroy basically the world. And then when Sasha is trying to tell Anne, Sasha already has cut enough strings and ties where it's like, oh, I can't trust you. You're just trying to manipulate me again. You're just trying to do this. You're just trying to do this. And I think that is what hit in Sasha, where she's like, oh, if I legitimately want to be trusted by my friend, I need to legitimately try and work hard to it and not just constantly manipulate. And I need to be open and honest when I'm seeing or feeling things, and not just, oh, I'm going to secretly turn against this entire plan that we've been working so hard for, and then realize it was a good thing that I took over your plan, but then the person doesn't trust you. What comes of it?
At the end of the day, did she really win? Especially because their plan fails. Sasha and Grime don't end up taking over Newtopia or whatever they plan to do because Andreas already won. His army's already destroying the villages and everything is already under his control. So at the end of the day, was it worth it for Sasha to do that? I think we both agree no, it wasn't, because it just really, it cut more ties. It broke more hearts and friendships. And that's something that I think is so important about friendships is the Bible talks a lot about rebuking. Like in 1 Timothy, the way Paul instructs Timothy to rebuke, and all scripture is God-breathed and is useful for correcting, teaching, rebuking, and training in righteousness. And it's something that, especially I think in the States, we don't like to do because any semblance of conflict gets muddy. We don't like being told we're wrong. And I still struggle with that, I'll fully admit. But I know our friendships are forged stronger when we're willing to be honest. Like, I mean, it's a different scenario for Anne and Sasha because, like, all the emotions are already high. But it's even harder, I think, when We're just by ourselves, feeling comfortable, and we don't want to break the tension. But then we do. And that's why I remember I told you Nathan in David's life is great for that example. In 2 Samuel 12, like 2 Samuel 7 or 11, that's when David has slept with Bathsheba. That's when he's had Uriah killed. And
trying to cover up his wrongs.
Right. And then Nathan comes in and tells him the story about there was a guy who had a bunch of sheep. There was another guy with one sheep. But that other guy who had all those other sheep said, nah, I want you to kill the poor man's sheep for my guest. And then David's infuriated by that. Like, why would he do such a thing, have him killed? And then Nathan has to do the hard thing and say,
look in the mirror, that was you.
Yes. And, like, the tension was high there, especially because David was the king. Nathan could have chosen to think, like, yeah, like, Lord, I trust you, but also he's the king, so he could have me executed at a moment's notice. So, I mean, David's a good guy, but he's the king. But no, he's willing to be that guy, and he did it before whenever David wanted to build the temple for God. I believe that's 2 Samuel 7, where then Nathan's like, yeah, great idea, the Lord be with you. But then the next day, Nathan gets a call from God saying, no, David, you're not going to do this, but your son will. And that, I think, even hits closer to like what our culture normally deals with, where someone has an idea and we're like, okay, go for it. You go, girl, or something. And it's harder whenever, like, we know it's not right. We know that maybe it's not even necessarily that it's wrong, but we know what could be better for our friends. And Sasha had that talent. Like, she knew the strengths and weaknesses of Anne, of Marcy, and also eventually everyone else. It was just learning how to hone that to not be selfish and, like you said, not be manipulative about it. That's so powerful in a friendship, is that we don't just completely reject, all right, well, we can't be rude to our friends. We can't be honest if it's going to hurt them. And we also don't go, we're only going to be pieces of crap to our friends because we want to give tough love. It's got to be both.
I agree. And, like, especially in our friendship, we've had the intimate conversations of, like, things going on in each other's lives and just, like, debriefing. And sometimes, especially, it's good to debrief with friends because you don't always see the full picture, because sometimes you're blinded by you being in the situation. Yeah. So it's important to, like, share and talk. And I feel like we see a lot of that in Amphibia, where, like, Anne is explaining her friendship with Marcy and is blinded by, at this point, oh, it's a good friendship, but then other people are like, no, that's kind of not a good friendship. I don't think she's a true friend. But yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's backtracking, but when we were talking earlier about the stones and the temples and stuff like that, we talked about each individual character and each thing they focused on. And each temple we saw had 3 trials each. Mm-hmm. And Marcy with the intelligence temple, at the beginning it's just puzzles, fun things, trials, stuff like that. But then at the end, the temple itself wouldn't let her win until she had the intelligence enough to sacrifice her chance of winning to save a friend. And I think that's a beautiful thing to look at, where the first 2 challenges are, oh yeah, it's fun, it's things like that, but then, like, the temple itself has a deeper meaning at the end, where intelligence you think of just being smart, being able to solve puzzles, being able to figure things out, but then it was looking for the intelligence of knowing when to stop trying when your friend's in danger or when someone you love is about to die. So then she had to, in her mind, fail the temple, but that was actually what she needed to do to pass the temple. Mm-hmm. And then when we get to Anne and the Heart Temple, we see the reason she won the temple was she sacrificed her warmth to save her friends, her family. She ran headfirst into an avalanche to save a family that wasn't even there. It was just a challenge. And then at the end, being willing to save someone's life who was trying to kill her and not give her the stone or her way home. And being able to, hey, I have the music box, I have the stone, I could just let this person die, but she chose to save. And then when we get to the Strength Temple, yeah, the first couple challenges are fighting and then, like, showing your strength, lifting the door, doing a bar up. I'm clearly a gym person. And then the final one is the gravity pushing down on them and just perseverance. and like keep going, and your strength in that is just perseverance. So even though like on a kids TV show view, oh, it's 3 fun temples focusing on these 3 things, but if we dissect them even farther, it's about like the knowledge of when to sacrifice, the knowledge of when to save, and the knowledge of keep going. Like just the different aspects of within knowledge, heart, and strength, there's those other aspects. And yeah, it relates to friendship because like you persevere in a friendship because friendships go through hard times. Like we have had hard times. Like our friendship's not perfect. We've had roadblocks, we've had disagreements, we've talked through them. But like persevering through it, or even like picking someone up, like not save, like obviously we haven't been in a situation where we had to like save someone's life by picking them off a cliff. Sure. At least I haven't. I don't know if you have.
It's only happened 5 times, but I'm just kidding.
Maybe you should stop hanging around cliffs.
But they're so fun.
But like being able to like pick someone up metaphorically, like when your friend's down, or not even a friend, but like when you see someone else, like in the situation of the Temple of Heart, it's someone they don't even know. Like the first challenge of Heart is friends and family. The second one is stranger. And the third one's actually an enemy because she's trying to kill her. And then intelligence, being able to understand when you need to back away to help someone else.
Like you said, picking someone up, persevering, bear one another's burdens. Man, and I love you just perfectly described those temples because, like, the powerful stuff.
I've seen the show a few times.
Like I said, yeah, and I'm glad that you can be the one that remembers the intimate stuff because, like, yeah, I like the show, but I've also watched a lot. I'm making a podcast where I'm watching multiple things all the time, so I kind of shoot myself in the foot there. But
I've also been amazingly blessed with an amazing memory.
That's true.
I say that now. It's going to be a curse in the future.
And great predictive abilities. I hate how you're able to predict most things in the shows I've recommended.
But like you said, you take in a lot of media. I also take in a lot of media.
Right.
I've watched a lot of shows, and a lot of shows do get a little repetitive.
They do.
In some cases.
Yeah.
But there are still surprisings and some fun twists along the way.
Yeah, like Amphibia for me, I know the formula where it's like, this is the friend, we start with the goofy fun stuff, especially because this show, not only through the references, but even just in structure, is very similar to Gravity Falls and Owl House. Newbie joins a very specific weird location, group of characters. We get the first season, which is more like fun stuff, and then the later seasons get more into the story, and that's when they get a bit darker. Like, even the temple, like 3 temples, very like Legend of Zelda and the quest stuff, but like you just described, it may be what we have seen before, but it's not a ripoff. It's its own thing and still is just as nuanced. Like I was saying earlier about like the lore, it's simple, but it's so nuanced. And I'd say at this point, a battle cry of this podcast has been, kids media does not have to be stupid. I don't think there's anything wrong with like, just from the movie I've watched, like I don't think a Paw Patrol or a Disney Junior show in and of itself is wrong to consume. But then you can have a show like Bluey, like Amphibia, like these shows that are made for kids, but aren't made like kids are stupid. Not something to just fill 20 minutes. It can enrich us. It can teach us something like you've already described in ways I didn't even remember, the deep intricacies of what friendship can look like and what it should be.
And something else that I thought on, if we want to compare it to like our walk with like Christ and the Holy Spirit, we go through these times, we go through these challenges, but we grow and we come out better, and we grow in Christ, and we grow with him, and we let his light shine through us. I mean, obviously the show isn't directly saying Christ or the Holy Spirit. It's a kid's show. It's also 2025, and they sadly don't do that. Right. But it could be a metaphor to like our walk. Like we go through trials, we go through temples per se, and we come out on the other end and we can grow in deeper connections. We grow our faith, we grow our relationships with others, and we can show our light, kind of like in the stone aspect. She went through the trial, she has her light inside of her, magic, anime power, whatever you want to call it, and she shows it and the whole world sees it. It's a bit of a stretch, but if we want to compare it back to our lives as Christians, we grow in life, we have the light in us, we shine our light so the whole world can see. And in doing that, we hopefully let others believe. Just like the whole world didn't believe in this frog apocalypse. I think that's what they called it. But all of a sudden, there it is. So it's like in a more Christ-based conversation of this, we need to be the light that the world can see, and then see that it's real, see that it's true.
Now that you mention it, the frog apocalypse, there might even be Revelation analogies there where it's like the frog apocalypse happens. Maybe Andreas is the scarlet beast, the moon turning red is the core, I don't know. That's definitely stretching, but...
Yeah. We can obviously find as many connections as we can, but are they accurate or true, or should they, or are they heresy? That's a good conversation.
You know, Polly loves violence, so maybe like Elisha summoning she-bears, Polly's the Elisha of this show.
There you go. But we also see, like, her character. Like, she's a side character. She's in the whole show. But we see her growth, not in friendship where she wanted to, like, kill people. Like, violent. She's a violent person. Not necessarily kill people. She's just a violent little frog. But, like, how when she puts her mind to it and works hard, she can become one of the smartest characters. Yes. Like, she learned all of robotics in one night.
Right.
She
through a YouTube video, too.
Yeah, and it's like the whole joking part of that episode is when wise old Hop Pop's like, well, imagine if we use that for good. What could we learn? And then they just go straight to cat videos. So there are, and that also could be like in how we share the gospel of like, there are things at our fingertips that can be used for good. Yes. And not just internet, which, I mean, this is a version like what we're doing right now, this podcast, but like other aspects in our world that a lot of people just use for one thing. Like a lot of people use Spotify just for music, maybe not always the best music, but there's other options as well. Maybe people use YouTube just to watch videos and just have a fun time. Not saying that's bad, but there are so many other things out there as well.
And there's things like this where it can genuinely enrich us, and like, yes, we can have the videos of like Sprig being chaotic evil for like 5 minutes, one of those montage videos. Like, it's nice to have that entertainment, but we can also have the moments like this where we can look at characters like Hop Pop and Polly and let Hop Pop admit that their parents were murdered by herons. Even the way they portray the herons, even they have that moment, I think, in the Frog Apocalypse finale where they see the herons that killed their parents and they have to reconcile with that.
So I just recently finished watching the show with a buddy of ours, and it's very like jarring, especially during the Frog
It's hard to say.
Frog Apocalypse. There we go. At the end, especially when it's like the planters, the frog family, are all frozen in terror almost. Because especially Sprig, he was so young, and even in that moment, you hear him say, I only remember one thing from that day, and it was the sound. I don't know if you remember that.
Don't.
But literally, he's like curled up, and he's like, I only remember one thing from that day, and it's the sound that those herons made. So it's like that jarring like scar, but then the overcoming of it whenever the herons are attacking Anne's parents, and the planter family immediately jump to action. And it's like, we already lost one family. We're not going to lose another. So it's the adoptiveness of like others, like into a family. Like blood relation's one thing, but you can also be like in Jonathan and David's case, so close and so knit that you are family.
The church itself is supposed to be a family. At the end of the day, we're not supposed to just fill church seats. We're supposed to be a family, the body of Christ. Like, you don't call each other a body and think like separate Lego pieces you're throwing together to make a minifigure. It is people forming together, and it's so strong, and it comes with that need for the love and the affection, the fun times, and the seriousness. I remember I put Proverbs 27:9 here of oil and perfume make the heart glad. So those are good things. And the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. So both things, oil and perfume, the fun, the beauty of life, great. But then the sweetness of a friend's earnest counsel blends together well. And one more biblical connection that I found was the most forgotten about character in the book of Job, Elihu. He is the one, though, who after Job's three friends have just been saying...
Oh, you mean the terrible friends?
The terrible friends, the Sashas for a time. Yeah. They were the ones just saying like, well, Job, clearly you sinned. Clearly you did something horrible, and you're just not repenting, you awful sinner. And then Elihu, it actually says that these three men, the friends, ceased to answer Job, And because they were righteous in because Job was righteous in his own eyes. And this is Job 32, verses 1 through 3. Then Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, of the family of Ram, burned with anger. He burned with anger at Job because he justified himself rather than God. He burned with anger also at Job's 3 friends because they had no answer, although they had declared Job to be in the wrong. And it says in verse 4 that Elihu had waited to speak to Job because they were older than he. So, like, he was very respectful. He was wise to do that. And when Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these 3 men, he burned with anger. And so that balance of, like, Elihu didn't sit there and listen to their paragraphs upon paragraphs of rebuking and arguing just to yell at them. He stuck there because he cared about Job. He cared about the friends. That balance of, like, that came from a deep place of love. But also, then Elihu gets his own chapters upon chapters to say how wrong they were and how awful Job was being, how awful the friends were. It was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's just such a great connection of, like, that balance of friendship we need. And again, I just love Amphibia does that so much to where, like, at the end, we got to watch that finale, got all the feels from it. And then we had that, like, who knows, 2-hour conversation about everything it had to offer.
It was a long conversation, but it was a good conversation. Most of our conversations are. Some of them are silly, but a lot of them end up getting into deep theological and serious conversations.
Yeah. And it's great because we don't discredit the TV show time as like, oh, that was like the appetizer before we got to the real stuff. But both were equally important and equally showed our friendship and intimacy God has given us. Even in, like, if I'm going to do a bird's eye view, like, we've only known each other, I'd say, it's about 3 years now, right?
I was about to say 3 years too, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, sure, in the grand scheme of our lives, that's been a bit short, but God has been good to us that, like, we've grown so intimately in just this short time that, like, again, you were the guy that helped me through some of the worst moments of my trip 2 years ago. No, a year ago.
A year ago, yeah.
It was a year ago. My timeline is horrible.
Because the videos were a year ago that I sent you for birthday.
Yes. And those got me through the worst moments of that trip where I really just felt so alone and I didn't have anyone. But someone across the continent not only was sending me videos, but helping organize my other friends to then send me videos. And it sounds like I'm just trying to butter you up for a podcast, but no, it really is just like, it meant so much. And there's, like, few words can describe, like, that appreciation that I feel for that in something that the show in a great microcosm is able to show, especially through moments like Grime giving up his arm to protect Sasha, the moment where Sprig and Anne, like, oh my gosh, our friend brought this up too, where Sprig and Anne have their last words, but then their last moment is just a hug. That just, like, assurance that we love each other, and even if that's the last note we have, we're always going to be there, even if we do never see each other again.
Well, and it was the realization in Sprig before that, whenever Sasha and Anne tell that to Marcy in reassurance that, hey, even if you move away, we'll still be friends. Mm-hmm. And Sprig seeing that and realizing, oh, Anne's not going to be directly in Amphibia with me for my whole life. Because earlier that episode, it was the whole, oh, I can't wait for, Sprig says, oh, I can't wait for all this to end so Anne and I can go back to the way things were. And Hot Pop's like, don't you think Anne's going to go back home? And it doesn't register with Sprig at that moment. Again, I recently watched the show. Yeah. A lot of it's fresh in my mind. But yeah, it's the aspects of then that moment with the hug of, oh, this is okay. This is what's going to happen. And the acceptance in that hug as well. Where she goes off and he stays, and they still know that their hearts and friendship is still united, even if they're separate. And then going back to you and I, our connection with, even though you were all the way over there, and the connections with that, I don't want to praise myself in this aspect. I am human. I have made multiple terrible decisions. I am a terrible person. But I work hard in life, and
you're a new creation, not a terrible person.
Thank you. Okay, you're right. But like, I've had hard times in life and stuff like that, where friendship is one thing that I value so much. And with my changing of schools throughout life and stuff like that, I have lost connections with friendships and lost connections with friendships that it's something that I strive to really hold on to, even though it's hard. And it's those patterns that get stuck in my head of, oh, friendships aren't going to last forever. This is just a temporary thing. It's those, just because it was the patterns in the past doesn't mean it has to be the patterns in the future. Yeah. So especially now that I am a more conscious, aware adult, and not like a misunderstood teenager who doesn't comprehend everything going on in life, knowing that a friendship can continue and go on, it just takes a little bit of work and effort, and it's worth it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And hitting another realization. In the same way Sprig had to hit that realization, I'm going to say this right now. I submitted my application to where I'm going back to college. So I know my next year plan for when I'm going to get my degree to go overseas. Spoiler audience, I'm wanting to go overseas to teach.
It wasn't a spoiler for me.
I wonder why.
We know each other. We've talked.
Right. But the reason I even bring that up is because we're eventually, in very near future, are going to keep practicing that. And I admit that's terrifying. Worrying if I'm going to do enough to send to you. Worrying if you're going to drop off and not send anything. Because I think those are just the real fears we have. Because I heard this phrase recently of soul tie. Some people use it for just like sex or whatever. But I think on that deeper level, some people I think have taken the phrase to understand like there's a real connection between humans, that we know each other's souls now. It's not just I know Josh. Like, we've gotten to know each other as deep friends, just like how the three girls are always going to be there for each other. Like, eventually, yeah, we're not going to be able to watch TV shows together all the time, but
modern technology, we can make a way.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it'll be VR headsets or something.
Oh, no.
We're going to go real life Sword Art Online.
Oh, no.
But trying to stick the landing on what I was trying to say is that the fear of potentially losing the friendship that Marcy had to realize, that doesn't mean we shouldn't still take the risk. And that's something I think we're both like in confidence with the Lord. We're going to try our darndest to keep going, even if, yeah, we don't always text each other.
And like we see in the show and like we practice in life, in the show we see that even when Marcy left, they didn't hang out. Even when you were all the way on the other side of the ocean, unlike the bit earlier where we were joking with our letters back and forth, we didn't talk every single day. But we were there in the moments that mattered and that were needed. So it was a situation where, like, when you needed me, I was going to be there. When I needed you, you were going to be there. We still had the fun conversations in between all that. But, like, it's not like you were struggling and needed someone and I just completely ignored you. Yes, there was the time difference and delay. There were still moments that we got to talk actual live one-on-one. But it wasn't that we talked every single day and about every single detail in our lives. But we're a friendship that we don't have to do that. We know, and even though we'll struggle with it every now and then, we know that we'll be there for each other, no matter how far the distance, no matter the situation. And if anything happens, you know, we'll see each other in heaven. Not that I'm banking on that.
Yeah.
I'm banking we'll see each other in heaven. I'm not banking on anything happening.
Yeah, gosh, that's even darker to think about. That's another Amphibia parallel, I guess, because the parents have to deal with the fact that, like, they could have dealt with the fact their daughter died. I mean, they do that twice, because first time, like, she disappears in real time, but then whenever, like, she sacrificed herself to the core, like, that could have been a real thing.
And the whole trust, I don't know if trust is the right word, but, like, the fact that they sent Anne not once but twice back through the portal, not knowing necessarily what could happen. Like, the first time she had Andreas to go back and fight, and they're like, they still sent her even though there was a big bad. The second time, it was all defeated. They assumed everything was good. They sent her back through the portal, assuming they'd see her again. Spoiler alert, if you feel like you haven't gotten enough spoilers. She technically, in a way, though show does it weirdly, dies. Comes back, but only with, like, small versions of ways to get home. So it's the aspect of there could have been her not coming home, the thoughts of what could have gone through the parents' head, the episode where Anne is back home and writes the letters to Marcy's parents and Sasha's parents, where it's like, don't know what they're going through, but we saw what Anne's parents were going through, where it's like they were going through the aspect of like grief. She could be dead, she could not be dead. We see the mom who had to work through things where it's like she made sculptures of Anne to cope, and just different aspects of that, of grief and being separated and not knowing necessarily, without communication in their case. Luckily, in our world, in our life, we communicate with each other, even if we're crossed seas, across country, across planets, not planets, that's right. Not yet.
Are you implying that one day one of us will be a missionary to Mars?
Listen, God put me here on this earth, and I will stay here on this earth. Bless those who decide to leave the planet. I will be staying here. Who knows?
I don't know if I would trust going to Mars anyway.
You know how they have the movie Mars Needs Moms?
Oh.
How about
No.
Mars Needs Missions?
Why did you bring up Mars Needs Mom?
It was the only movie I could think about Mars.
I mean, touche. My brain knew for a second. I'm like, there's no way he's about to bring Mars Needs Mom into this.
This is how good of friends we are.
What a weird movie.
I mean, who knows what the future holds? I don't think in my lifetime we'll see that, but who knows? I'm an old man.
I don't know.
Some of the kids at church call me 40. I am not 40.
One of my favorite moments is whenever we celebrated your birthday 2 years ago, and when that happened, one of our kids yelled, "Old man!" Oh, man.
I'm not old. What's weird, this is a little off topic, we'll
Go
get
for
back.
it.
What's weird is physically I act the youngest out of our whole friend group.
That's true.
Our
actually.
buddy Paul has a lot of back problems. He's younger than me by like 3 years.
Tore an ACL.
Other people complain of like muscle sores. I don't, and I'm the oldest.
I know. You apparently drink your milk a lot.
I hate milk.
Dadgummit.
Unless it's my chalky milk. Chocolate milk for those who are weird. Chalky milk, because no one touches my chalky milk.
I'm sorry I touched your chalky milk that time.
You've learned your lesson. It's okay.
Yes, I repented. I went to the Holy of Holies.
But yeah, so like what we're doing now, we're joking around as good friends, and like a podcast about friendship. This episode is about friendship, and then like biblical level of like what we see in the Bible of friendships, and not just that, but like comparisons of other things and our lives especially.
And yeah, that was the whole reason I wanted to bring Adonai and Ar into this. I have told you, I had you watch Spectacular Spider-Man with me because I wanted to show you one of the best examples of what Spider-Man does for me. I've gotten to watch other shows now. We've been talking about Daredevil because I've been going through that because of the connection it gave me to my friend Grant and the different lessons that come with that. And even though, like, obviously Daredevil and Amphibia are two radically different shows, but all of this art, like, especially if it's good, then whether they intend to or not, it can point us to Jesus in a way that we would never expect, and yet can be so uniquely powerful to where it's worthy making a podcast over and sitting down to talking about Frog Show together.
I mean, we see the art of the creator as well, like in the world. Like, we are seeing the art of these shows, and like we're talking about like that kind of art, but also like the greatest, like your podcast, the greatest artist of all is God, who created everything and created the planet, created all of us with those artistic views and artistic imaginations. And like that's another thing our friendship connects on. Like, we're both very artistic people, musically, visually, stuff like that. Like, we both have different like things we prefer when it comes to art, but we do also have the lines that cross like over each other. And especially in our TV show stuff that we do, like, we both have similar interests, but we're still different people. And it's been such a joy with you, and I hope you can say the same thing, of like, we take turns picking TV shows that we like and then like introduce it to the other person, and it's been enjoyable getting to know like what the other person likes, even though we don't always fully connect with the exact same show like the other person does. But it's the give and take of our friendship of we're getting through it, we're sharing each other what our interests are and stuff like that. And then we find Frog Show that we get to do this about.
Right.
And all about friendship between our friendships.
And like I joke with you so much about Umbrella, but in all seriousness, like through all the dance numbers and all of that, like I never mean to attack you as the person with it, because as dumb as that show is, it was so much fun to still go through.
And it's not my favorite show either. It's just like we both enjoy superheroes. It's the aspect of like, this is a very weird. Again, I like the first couple seasons. They're good seasons.
I think the first 2 seasons are great.
It goes downhill. But again, it's just like we started it, we were going to get through it, and we joke about it, we talk about it, we have fun about it. Like it again, it's a show that I've watched and now you've watched, but just connecting with it and having conversation, fun conversation, serious conversation, that's what all of our shows together have done, whether it be silly, goofy, making fun of it, or like digging in deep and talking about relationships, talking about family, talking about like the different values that we have in our shows and in like what we see and what we take away.
Especially because I know something I think that's been humbling for me, because like again, I would love for us to talk about Arcane one day, because so powerful. I love that show. But
I will probably need a rewatch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's that same way where it's for me, like that show does have some problems, but I love so much of it. But then when I heard your jokes or things you said about it, it was nice to hear your perspective. And even just moments I'm like, oh yeah, that isn't as good as I thought it was. Or okay, maybe that's not perfect, because again, we're different people, but there is that beauty of how like we can mingle with that, mix and match, and it's not a bad thing. It's not bad that we're different, because I don't know, I'm not trying to turn this into American do this bad, but it feels like it's such a prevalent problem, especially because geeks have this horrible issue of, oh, you don't agree with me, then you're wrong.
Oh, you don't think that this thing happened, this thing, that this thing, that this thing, that this thing, that this thing, you know, like the whole like the I mean nothing against anyone, like the whole like just backing up your opinion because you think it's right.
Yes.
But what I was thinking about, like when you watch a TV show by yourself, you do process it on your own and you think on it like that. But a lot of times, like when you're by yourself, you don't like process vocally out loud. And that's what I've enjoyed, like especially when we watch shows together, like vocaling out loud, like in the moments of something happening and just saying out loud. And then like either the other person registers like, oh, I didn't think on like that, or like the other, like just hearing the other person's thoughts out loud, even though you perceived the show one way in your head when you first watched it.
Yeah. That does slightly make me curious about what watching Umbrella on a rewatch would be like, knowing where all of it's going, but I don't know if I want to rewatch Umbrella.
We definitely don't have to. We have other shows on our list to get through.
We have a lot.
Yes.
But I think to probably put a ribbon on this, I always like to ask my guests to pray, so you can choose to or not if you want, but...
Oh, man. I would absolutely love to pray.
And what I would like to ask you to pray for is... friendship specifically. I think as much as we've talked about this, obviously we've both said we're not experts. We're trying our best to follow God and just go along and correct them. So I guess I would ask, could you pray that we could continue to persevere and fight for our friendships, so that way we can reach that goal, we can reach that joy that Jonathan and David had, that Nathan and David had, that we have right now.
Yeah, of course. All right. Dear Lord, thank you for this amazing time that I get to spend with my buddy Noel, and just the friendship that we have, and that it's grown over these past 3 years, however long it's been. You know, we don't always get the dates right. Just thank you that we get to grow in our friendship, and that we get to do this together. When we were kids, we really didn't want anything to do with each other, and just how far we have come and we have grown. And that is thanks to you in our life, and thanks to our belief in you and the Holy Spirit working through both of us. Just be with us as we don't know where we'll be in the future, but that we can still strengthen our friendship no matter where we are. And not just Noel and I's friendship, but also our friendship with our other friends and everyone else we meet in the future and in life. Just be with us and have your Spirit connect us with those around us, and the perseverance that it takes, because friendship is not a easy thing. It takes time, it takes effort, and you're with us every step of the way. Give us souls that yearn to be close like David and Jonathan. Thank you for our friendship and you being in our life. Amen.
And for the audience, remember, as always, above everything we talked about, above everything God made, he was happiest when he made you. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening. There's a little more. I want to thank you all for listening to this episode today. If you enjoyed it, a positive rating would be appreciated.
I had to.
Yeah, we did discuss the dolphin noise, so now you've gotten the dolphin. You know what? Give us a 5-star rating because you got that dolphin noise. That is a great dolphin impression. Affirm, my friend, dang it. But anyway, as we conclude today, may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Enjoy Frog Show, everyone, and grace be with you all.